You are listening to Green Talk, presented by GreenRunsDeep.com. Now, here's your host.
Jordan puts on his show. Jordan coming out. As soon as that truck goes out, you know something's going to happen. Oh, no time for Mr. Jordan.
What's up, Celtics fans? Welcome to another edition of Green Talk. I'm your host, Jordan, and we hope you guys enjoy the show tonight. Today, we got our executive producer, Brandon Kivlin. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fantastic. We also got Trent, who is a writer for GreenRunsDeep.com. How are you?
Always good, man. Always good. Glad to be here.
Great. And special guest all the way from the UK, we got Graham Anderson. How are you, man?
I'm doing good, mate.
That's good. Today, we're going to be talking about Game 4 and talking a little bit about Kevin Love and the Kelly Olynyk situation. And so let's hop right into it, guys. Let's go ahead and talk about Game 4. What do you think about it, Trent?
Well, you know, I never thought that the Celtics were really going to steal a game from him. I know I'm a Celtics fan. It hurts me to say it, but I never really thought that their talent level could match up with the Cavaliers' talent level. So I regrettably picked the Cavs to advance in the sweep. Happy to say that I'm right. Sad to see the Celtics season end. So it's very bittersweet for me. But the Celtics were completely outmatched through the entire series. They couldn't rebound. They had long scoring droughts. And those are some problems that they've had all season long. And yeah, they play with heart. They've got all of this grit, and they play so hard, but they just couldn't overcome those discrepancies in the lineup.
But let me ask you this. Kevin Love went down pretty early in the first quarter. Didn't you get a little glimmer of hope in that last game?
Not really. No, I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't really get any kind of glimmer of hope because, as we all know, Kevin Love is the third option on a team with LeBron James and Kyrie Irving. And I don't care who you are. Kevin Love, losing him is not gonna stop the Cavs from winning that series. I'm sorry, it's just not. And I hate to say it again. I really hate to say it, but it is what it is. The Celtics were just completely outmatched in every way. And I think if Kevin Love had never been in the series, the outcome would not have been much different.
Well, I'll tell you from a perspective of actually being in the Garden, everybody got real excited when they saw Kevin Love walk into the locker room. Everybody had a little hope. But, yeah.
I definitely felt that too. I mean, I was more than, you obviously don't want to see a player go down, but
yeah.
I really believe that, once he went down, there was a chance. I guess that was very hopeful thinking.
What do you think about it, Graham?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely an interesting series when it was started. I think the Celtics were just happy to make the playoffs. Period. Unfortunately, they did get the Cavs in the first round, so I took the Celtics to win, and I went with my heart. But in the back of my mind, I was pretty confident the Cavs were going to win the series. Sorry to all Celtics fans out there, I apologize, but I think, like you said, Trent, the Cavs just have better talent, and I think even when Kevin Love gets hurt, if you want to be a playoff contending team, a championship contending team like the Cavaliers, you step up. The playoffs is a completely different season from the regular season, and guys like LeBron and Kyrie Irving, they're going to step up. And even if Kevin Love wasn't there, I still think they probably would have clinched this series. It would have been nice if the Celtics weren't swept. It would have been nice if they had Game 5, Game 6 kind of thing. I think the playoff experience is good for a young team like the Celtics had. They clearly got a great fan base, so that's important. But, yeah, it was definitely an interesting series, even with Kevin Love getting hurt. I think now that's going to have more of an influence when it comes to the second round, and the Cavs might use that as a crutch. J.R. Smith's suspended 2 games, and Kevin Love's hurt, so now if the Cavs get knocked out in the second round, I think they'll probably turn that around and blame us somehow. But that's just my thought on the Cavs with that. But overall, I think it was a tough series for the Celtics to try to get an upset in overall anyway. So
So looking back at the game, Avery Bradley never seemed to show up, and in games 3 and 4, Shumpert really shut down Isaiah Thomas. Are there any thoughts about what happened to these guys?
I'm gonna hurt some feelings real quick. I don't like saying it, but I really do feel this way. I think the way that the Celtics lost this season and this series, and the brutality that they had to go through, after the Love injury, where Jay Crowder, like, he tore he didn't tear, but he sprained his ACL, in that hit from J.R. Smith, and just the hard pick by Perkins, some of the low blows, some of the non-basketball type plays. I'm glad it happened.
Glad what happened?
I'm glad that those things happened to the Celtics. I'm glad that they had another team that was that much better than them go in and beat them up like that, because that kind of thing will set a fire in those guys that they're never going to want to ever go out and feel that way again. And success is bred out of failure. And watching those guys fight so hard to get so little is heartbreaking, yes. But even Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. And it pushed him. It made him better. It made him want to do more, made him work harder. And I think that the Celtics as a whole need to take on that kind of mentality, to where this offseason they work harder than they've ever worked before, and they come out of the ashes and rise up and really surprise some people in the Eastern Conference next year, because they had that fire in them because they got beat down so badly. I think it's a good thing.
I'm with you, Trent, all the way on that. I think getting beat down like that is definitely good for them. I think also too, like you yourself, being a Celtics fan, you still had the Cavs sweeping them. So I think even the fan base, we're gonna support our team. We're gonna hope for the best. But I think when your fans, even some of your fans, don't believe that you can beat the Cavs, I think that can have an effect on the team. So I think at the same time, the Celtics will never admit it, but I think even going into it, they got young players. They might have had that little thought in the back of their mind: how are we going to get to the second round? We got to get through LeBron. We got to get through Love. We got to get through all these great Cavs players. And I mean, obviously, you don't enter the playoffs and have that mindset. But I think just having to overcome those hurdles was going to be a huge milestone for them to get to in the first place. So I think it's good that they got the crap beat out of them, for lack of a better word, because it is going to make them stronger. And I think they're going to have a good offseason and maybe find some pieces that can make them better next year. Playing in the Eastern Conference, it's a weak conference, and they play in the Atlantic. The Raptors won the division, and look what happened to them in the first round. So if Boston come back, that division is theirs to grab as far as I'm concerned.
I'm going to make the opposite point. I don't necessarily think a 4-game sweep is a positive thing for the Celtics. You take young guys and they make it to the playoffs after a big push to make it there. And I've got to think that it's pretty demoralizing to get in there and get swept in 4 games. And whether or not we want to admit it as Celtics fans, the Cavs were just that much better than the Celtics in all games. I mean, they pretty much had to play 70% as well as they as well as they could. They had to play 70% of what they had to do to win any game. And I gotta think that that's demoralizing to these young guys that fought so hard, and then they just fall right down.
I think it is going to hurt them a little bit, but then at the end of that game with Crowder going out, they're just going to say, we need to be tougher. If one of our star players gets knocked out, we can't have that happen. So I think they're going to build more team chemistry, and they're going to have each other's back more. So yeah, it's a 4-game sweep. You never want to see a team go out that way. So I think it's going to have a bit of both. I think, for the first little while, they're all going to be a little demoralized, but then they're going to snap back into shape and say, no, we're better than this. And they'll come back next year, and I think they'll have a chance of winning the Atlantic Division.
Oh, well, I think they have as good a chance as any to win the Atlantic. I mean, it's weak. We all know that. But, Brandon, let me ask you a question. Do you think that it would have been any more or less demoralizing if they had gotten a win against, say, Atlanta, or if they had gotten swept by Chicago. I think it really has to do with the team they played. I
Okay,
don't think
so
they would have been swept by either of those teams.
I
But
I agree. I feel like they're on their home court and they lost like pretty bad on their home. That's their home turf. I don't care if they went into it expecting maybe not to win. You know, they're expected to protect their home court, and at times they look better away. And I guess if they're playing the Hawks, winning possibly one or two games, it might be better. But I don't care who it's against. I think there's just this given pride that you got to win at home, and that's kind of an expectation.
yeah, I'll give you that. But at the same time, what's to say that they don't have that right there, the fact that they didn't win at home doesn't have that effect of I'll never want to feel this way again.
I
And
definitely
it
I see
pushes
that
them
point
harder.
too. I see that point too.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think failure is a bad thing. I think uh, perpetuated failure that's continuous, that's a bad thing. But with the way that these guys go out and they fight every game, and they win games they're not supposed to win, and they're in places that they're not supposed to be in, and they have a coaching staff and a crew in that front office that are designed to make winning basketball teams. I don't think that they're going to be sitting in the gutter come 2 or 3 years from now. I think that this is only going to be the precursor to a whole lot more success down the road. Just like in '86, when Jordan finally gets to the playoffs, he sets a record with 63 points in a game and all this great stuff, but he can't get past the Celtics. And then he can't get past the bad boy Pistons in '89 and '90. And then when he finally does, he finally pushes through all of that. He wins 6 straight titles. So I think that this is kind of like the early moments of Jordan, but except being one guy, it's the entire team.
No, I see
That's
that.
a good analogy. I like that.
That's mature thinking, and you look at a team, and to my understanding, I think Gerald Wallace is the only one over age of 25, and it's young guys, and at this point, all we can do is hope to pretend like we know what they're thinking, but they're young guys, and I'm not exactly sure what kind of effect that's going to have on them, losing a series 4-0, especially 2 games at home, that bad.
I think we'll know. I think we'll know the effects the best way once after the first 10, 15 games of next season. We'll see how they come out of the gate, and that'll I think show how they reacted to this playoff loss.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and take a little break real quick. Up next, we got Graham's Corner 3, where Graham is going to hop into some of the other series and talk a little bit about them.
Thanks for listening to Green Talk, presented by GreenRunSteep.com. Remember to check us out on Instagram at CelticStation5, on Twitter at CelticStation5, and of course the website GreenRunSteep.com. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back, Celtics fans. Right now, we're going to get into a little segment I like to call Graham's Corner 3. Right now, we have Graham Anderson, writer for GreenRunSteep.com, and we're gonna give him 3 topics of conversation, and he's going to go run down 3 minutes, and we're going to ask him some questions about these topics. So I want to get right into it. The first topic is I want a little review of this shellacking by the Washington Wizards on your Toronto Raptors, Graham. What happened?
Yeah, Canadians a little disappointed in his Raptors, that's for sure. I mean, like when I look at the Raptors, you look at their starting 5 with DeRozan, Lowry, Ross, Valanciunas, and Amir Johnson. I just don't see a star lineup there. I think outside of DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, your other 3 guys, I don't think they'd be starters on many other NBA teams. And when the playoffs come, it's time to step up. So I'm going to look at the 2 guards in Beal for the Wizards and then Lowry with the Raptors. When you look at their regular season, Beal was was averaging 15.3 points per game. Playoffs come, he's averaging 20.8, so he stepped it up by 5.5 points per game. Lowry did the complete opposite. Regular season, he was averaging 17.8 points per game. Playoffs, he's down to 12.3. So there's a 10-point swing right there. When that happens, just based on your guards, the Wizards are going to have a successful series, and they swept the Raptors, and the Raptors didn't step up. When you combine the guards, looking with Washington, you'll have obviously John Wall and then Beal. And then with the Raptors, you got Lowry and DeRozan. Wall and Beal were averaging 16.5 assists per game, whereas Lowry and DeRozan were only averaging 10.5 assists. So Wall and Beal are having 6 more assists than the guards of the Raptors. You're going to have more success. Then when you look at the big men with Valanciunas for the Raptors and then Gortat for the Wizards, Gortat was averaging another 6 more points per game than Valanciunas. So you got a 11-point swing between Beal and Gortat over Lowry and Valanciunas. That's not going to get the job done for the Raptors, and that's why I think the Wizards swept this series.
Yeah, and going back to your point, I really think that the lack of a bench, even though the Raptors have the sixth man of the year and Lou Williams on the bench, they really don't have much else coming off of there other than him. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, like when I look at that, you got Hansbrough, who is okay. Patterson again, okay. Vasquez is not a great option for your third guard. Like when you take DeRozan and Lowry out of the game and you have to put in Vasquez and Williams, you're not going to find success. I don't see Vasquez as a great guard. Williams, yeah, sixth man of the year, but even in the regular season, he was averaging 15.5 points per game, so that's solid. But he's only averaging 2 boards and 2 assists, and if that's going to be your next guard on the floor, then that's not going to lead you to success, I don't think. And the Wizards just had a deeper bench, I think too. They have Sessions, they have Gooden, they have Porter, they have guys who can get the job done.
Let me ask
Brandon, you got anything for him?
I got a question for him. What happened to Kyle Lowry?
Good question.
Great question. Yeah, I mean he's an all-star, or he voted as an all-star.
A starter, an all-star starter.
Yeah, a starting all-star, and I don't know what happened to him. I mean, like I said, playoffs you got to step up, and if he's your starting all-star for your team, he's going to be the guy on your team that players look to for leadership, for guidance, for a way to find a win. And if he's only averaging 12.3 points per game, that's pathetic as far as I'm concerned as a starter, a guy who was an all-star. DeRozan was chipping in with his 20 points per game. If Lowry did that, this series could have easily gone 5-6 games.
Well, talking about that, I want to transition right now because your 3 minutes are up, Graham. What do you have as far as the Houston-Dallas series? I know Dallas was able to take one from them, but Houston and James Harden just really took it to that Dallas lineup. What do you think about that series? Did it go the way that you thought it was going to go, or is it something different?
I think it did. Like I think you sum it up with one name, and that's Harden. He averages 28.4 points per game and throws in 7.8 assists in the playoffs. He's a stud. So you have a guy like that who's leading a lineup. That's going to be impressive. Then you got Dwight Howard with his 16.6 points and 13.8 boards. You have a solid 1-2 punch there, and I think what kind of allowed the Rockets to win this series so easily is the Mavericks didn't have a solid, consistent starting five. Chandler, Ellis, and Nowitzki, obviously they all started their games, and Ellis stepped up 26 points per game, Nowitzki 21.2 points per game, and he chipped in with 10.2 boards. But Rondo got hurt after game 2, Chandler Parsons got hurt after game 1, so you're mixing in guys like Barea and Aminu and Felton and Jefferson and these guys who aren't starters, but they have to now because Parsons and Rondo are out. So is that going to be kind of an argument that the Mavericks are going to bring up is, Parsons and Rondo were out? They could, but as far as I'm concerned, I think if you're going to make the second round, you're going to be a playoff team. You find a way to win when your stars go down, and the Rockets were just able to exploit that and run with it. And they have a solid bench too in Houston. Josh Smith, 17.4 points per game, and Brewer has 14.4.
Yeah, really
so
stepping
they're
up.
Successful.
You talked about Rondo. If you go back and you look at the stats, Rondo didn't necessarily make the Mavericks better. Their efficiency on offense actually went down a little bit after the trade. Do you think that Rondo's presence on that team had anything to do with their early exit?
I think it does. I think it did. Like Carlisle's a great coach to play for, obviously, and he butted heads with him for sure. As far as I'm concerned, I would have left Barea in as a starter. I think Barea is a solid guard. Monte Ellis is a star guard, and I think Barea is a solid number 2 guard. So I think bringing in Rondo did hurt them more than it helped them.
Absolutely. Brandon, you got anything for him?
I think he summed it up pretty well. Let's move on to the
Yeah,
next
Jordan?
topic.
All right. Jordan, you got something for him?
Oh, sir, he's good.
All right, outstanding. You know what? We got a little bit of extra time now, so we get into a series that actually hasn't ended yet. The San Antonio Spurs and the Los Angeles Clippers is easily the most intriguing series of the first round. Has it gone the way that you thought it was going to go, Graham? And if not, how did you think it was going to go?
I think it has. I think the Spurs. I'm not going to say overrated, but I think a lot of people expect a lot from the Spurs, and kind of slip under the radar a little bit. I'm going to say their records when you look at the regular season are only one game separation, even though the Clippers are third in the West and the Spurs are sixth in the West. So based on the regular season and their seeding, the Spurs, this would be an upset if they were to beat the Clippers based on the seeding. And right now, they're leading the series 3-2. I did see this going to a 6 or 7 game series. I didn't see a sweep or anything happening, but I definitely think the Clippers the talent to win this series. Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, and Duncan obviously has really stepped it up this playoffs. He's up 3.3 points per game as well as 1.7 rebounds compared to the regular season. And Kawhi Leonard is up 6.9 points per game. So there's guys stepping up on both sides, on both teams, and that's what's made this, I think, a deep series.
Yeah, I happen to agree with you on that. Chris Paul's presence on that team has really, really helped out the Clippers as far as staying on task. They're fun, they're athletic, and they're a joy to watch. But sometimes they get in their own way, and I think Chris Paul has a big influence on why they're not doing that so much this season. Do you think that the window for the Clippers is really starting to get smaller and smaller for them? Do you think that they're feeling a lot of pressure, Grant?
I think so. I mean, I think if they can find a way to beat the Spurs, that's going to give them the confidence push that they need to make a deep playoff run. But I think if they don't find a way to win a championship by the end of this decade, I wouldn't be surprised if a flip happens and again and no longer guys like Jordan and Griffin, they're great way to get him the ball. Griffin has upped his assists. He's got 7.2 assists per game, and Paul's got 6.8. But they got to find a way to work as a cohesive unit. The one story I like following with the Clippers with this series is after they traded and brought in Doc Rivers' son. It's kind of cool to have Coach's son on the same team in a playoff run. So that's just a neat story that I like following with this series.
I'm gonna open it up. Anybody got something for Mr. Graham?
I got something. What's the biggest surprise for you just watching this series?
The biggest surprise?
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's a surprise because I think it's almost become expected, but like Tim Duncan is not slowing down.
Yeah. No, that's
39. He's still averaging 17.2 points and 10.8 boards. Like, when is this guy going to stop? Is what I think keeps running through my mind. It's just crazy how well he's still playing.
He's 39 years old too, and it's really impressive watching him go out there. And he's got this a massive skill set, especially with his post moves and some of the things he does defensively. It's really impressive.
And I think when you look at Duncan, and when you look at Duncan and what he's doing at 39, like look at guys in the league now when they're 39, could they be retired? Is LeBron James going to be performing the way Duncan does when he's 39? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
So my last question, you kind of touched on this a little bit. If they lose this series, do you think they're gonna let go DeAndre, or what's your thoughts there?
That's a tough question. I think Jordan is an elite center when it comes to this league, and finding a guy who can get you 13 points and 13 boards. When you can find a center who can get double digits, double doubles, especially on the glass, it's gonna be tough for them to let him go. With him is he can't shoot from the line, and if your big man's down low, you want to get him the ball, teams just gonna foul him because he's got like a 30% free throw range. So if he can find a way to score from the line, I'd keep him. He's one of those players that how do you replace him if you let him go? I think would be the main talking point there.
I guess from a Clipper standpoint, they have this big three, and and they're just not winning. And I find it hard to believe that if they lose this series that they're gonna pay those guys to be together, and keep losing. I mean, how many first round exits have they had?
And to flip the script, I'd almost say keep Jordan and see if they might get rid of Chris Paul. I think it's easier to find good guards in the league than it is to find good big men down low. That's just going to be my other side of the point there.
Interesting.
You cannot replace a Chris Paul.
I agree.
No way you're going to replace a Chris Paul. I'm
Completely
sorry, you
agree.
let that guy go, and you might as well just have hired a preschool to be your starting five, because
Well, for sure as a player, Chris Paul's irreplaceable. But I'm just saying position-wise, I think it's easier to find a replacement for a guard position than it is for the center position.
So what you're saying is you're playing more of the metrics and less of the chemistry.
Yeah, I mean, they got a big three and they're not winning, so maybe the chemistry isn't that great.
Yeah, true.
Maybe they need a shake-up, like you said. I know you can't replace a Chris Paul, but maybe if you get rid of him, that lights the fire under Griffin and Jordan's butt to get him to the second round in a championship.
No. Well, there you have it. That
Wow.
was Graham's Corner 3. Went and talked about the Clippers San Antonio series, which is I appreciate that conversation. That was great, guys. But up next, we're going to get into another segment we call Explain Yourself, and I'll explain that when we come back from the break.
Thanks for listening to Green Talk, presented by GreenRunSteep.com. Remember to check us out on Instagram at CelticsNation5, on Twitter at CelticsNation5, and of course the website GreenRunSteep.com. And now, back to the show.
All right, welcome back, Celtics fans and NBA fans. You don't have to be just a Celtics fan to listen to our podcast, even though it helps. But right now, we're going to get into a nice little segment that I like to call Explain Yourself. It's a word association game. You've probably seen it. For example, I say Doc Rivers, right? You need to give me a one-word explanation as to who you think Doc Rivers is, and so on and so forth. And then we'll talk about it. So if you don't get it yet, you will. Just follow along. The first thing, I want to do an all Celtics version of this because that's who we are. First off, what do you guys think of, in one word, when I say Boston Celtics?
Hard working.
Hard working. Go ahead and explain that, Jordan.
All right. So during the season, they've had their ups and downs, correct?
Oh yeah.
But after the Rondo trade, everybody thought, or after the Rondo and Jeff Green trade, everybody thought, oh, we're just gonna tank. We're not gonna win more than 20 games this season, so on and so on. But with all their hard work and everything, they pushed themselves, and with some good trades by Danny Ainge, they pushed themselves to make it to the playoffs, which nobody thought would ever happen for this season. And I mean, that's hard work if you ask me.
Yeah. Hey, Brandon, what do you think of when I say Boston Celtics?
Short and simple, hustlers. And that's very self-explanatory.
Outstanding. I like that. I think Jordan really touched on that, so we kind of took a little bit of your thunder there. Graham, what do you think of when I say Boston Celtics?
Growth.
Outstanding. Explain that.
I think they found some pieces. They're a good young team. I don't think they're quite there yet, but I'm calling it. By the end of the decade, they'll get a championship.
I completely agree with you. All right, next one.
Wait. You gotta give me yours. I'm dying to hear yours.
Oh, mine.
Yes.
Mine, resilience. This team, no matter what has happened to them all season long, they have shown mental toughness like you wouldn't believe. Their best players statistically have been traded, yet they come back harder and stronger and more determined to win. And I think that really speaks to Brad Stevens and his coaching ability, and that front office's ability to put guys together that really mesh well and do well together. So if I were to describe them in one word, I'd say resilient. But
Excellent.
that leads me to my next one, Danny Ainge. What do you think of when I say Danny Ainge? He's the Boston Celtics GM. He's made a lot of really controversial trades, especially over the last few years. What do you guys think of when I say Danny Ainge? Jordan?
Come back.
Brandon?
President. I'm about to write him into my ballot, and it's between him or Brad for sure.
Ainge for 2016.
Yes, sir.
All right, I like that. Did you want to go any further into that, or you just think the president says it all?
President 2016, Danny Ainge.
Outstanding.
Let's
Graham,
get that going.
what do you think of when I say Danny Ainge?
Shocker.
Tell me about it.
I think he's one of those guys that makes trades that kind of you question maybe at first, but then somehow they work. And I think that's what makes a GM so great, is they have to have a good mind and kind of make those trades that maybe the fans aren't going to be crazy about to begin with, but if you see the big picture and where it's taking the team, it's a good move.
Outstanding. Jordan, what do you got?
I'm just gonna go with something simple and just say smart.
All right, go ahead.
He's put together a very, very good team with basically, or with giving away nothing really. For most, like with Isaiah Thomas, he gave away what did he give away for Isaiah? Damn it.
Nothing. You're right.
Yeah,
nothing.
he didn't give it was something that was already borrowed anyway.
Very smart when he goes into his trade discussions and all that, and he's done a very good job for the Celtics.
I completely agree. And when I hear Danny Ainge, I think mastermind. I think that really echoes a lot of what you guys are saying. But his ability to think 10, 11, 15, 16, 17, 30 moves ahead of the rest of the league is really starting to be showcased here. Nobody saw him picking up Brad Stevens to be the next coach of the Celtics. Nobody saw him trading for Isaiah Thomas. Nobody saw him letting Rondo go for what they thought was so little. And all of these things, I'm sure he's been contemplating and really running through his mind over and over again. And it's been really interesting to watch him do his work. So I would say he's a mastermind in the sport of being a general manager. Next Celtic I want to talk about is Avery Bradley. Avery Bradley had one of the best seasons he's had in his entire career. Although he's not a great scoring presence, he's definitely the leader of this team right now. And I just want to get some ideas as to what you guys think of when I say Avery Bradley.
I'm gonna go bait.
Ooh.
And I guess to go on to that trade bait. I think this series said it all. You gotta get rid of him. I think they signed him for a little too much over the offseason. A move to basically try to keep him in Boston. And I think you gotta trade him. So I'm gonna say bait.
All right, Graham, what do you think?
I'm going to use 2 words: untapped potential.
You just already violated the whole outline of this segment, Graham. You're killing me. All right, never mind. Go ahead.
I couldn't think of one. I think it's just the Celtics aren't the right fit for him. I think he needs to find a team that he doesn't need to be the face of, need to be the cornerstone of, but can produce with. I just think the Celtics aren't the right fit for him.
All right, go ahead, Jordan. What do you think?
I'm gonna agree with Graham, except for the fact that I think that he should just come off the bench for the Celtics. He shouldn't be a starting shooting guard, like a number 1 or 2 scoring option for us. That's just what I think. I don't think he needs to be traded, like how Brandon says, but maybe come off the bench next season behind another player that we could possibly pick up during the offseason.
All right, I understand that. When I think Avery Bradley, I think complement. I think Avery Bradley's skill set is a complement to a winning atmosphere and a winning team. Do I think he should be the guy? No. But I also think that he does belong with the Celtics. I think that he does fit with them. But the fact that he doesn't have as much talent around him really highlights his flaws as a basketball player. And I think we saw that this year because he was really the only option on both sides of the floor for most of the season. I mean, he was scoring the most points. He was asked to guard the most, the hardest person to guard on each team. And I think it took a lot out of him. And when he got to the playoffs, he just didn't have enough left, especially against guys like, J.R. Smith and Kyrie and LeBron. I just think it just took a little bit too much out of him. And that's why I think he'd be a compliment to a great team, a winning team, but not necessarily the guy for a great team or a winning team. All right. Next guy I want to talk about. I really love this individual, but Brad Stevens. What do you guys think of when I say Brad Stevens?
A god.
Wow. High praise. Go ahead, Jordan. What do you explain that? Explain yourself.
Brad Stevens, he is a very smart coach. He knows exactly what he's doing with this team. He brought this. He's coaching this team to be so much better than what people think that they could be. He's good at drawing plays at the end of games or out of bounds plays after timeouts and everything. And I don't know. He's just really he's a god. That's all I can say.
All right, Brandon, what you got, man?
I got asset, and for a simple reason, if they're gonna lure a guy to Boston, the caliber of LaMarcus Aldridge or Marcus Gasol or anything, they gotta point to him as their biggest asset. I mean, the players love to play for him. And he's just a great young coach, and I biggest asset for the Celtics.
All right, I like that. Graham, what you got, man?
I'm gonna say tough.
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, he's got a young roster. Most of the players are under 25. So I think how they bounce back from this early loss in the playoffs, it's going to come from the head coach. The success of a team comes from the head of the team, and that's your head coach. And I think Stevens has that presence that's going to will this team to be better and will them to make the playoffs again next year.
All right, I like that. When I think Brad Stevens, I think calm. And, you guys touched on a lot of it. When he took over this team, they weren't in their prime. They were older. They had lost some key guys, Paul Pierce, KG, and he was in the middle of a rebuilding project. And you don't see him lose his mind. I think he's gotten 2 or 3 technicals this year and got thrown out of one game, and it just goes to show you that he's got such a great presence that really is complementary to the way that the team is set up, and the guys around him that he coaches respond to him and in his calm demeanor, and they seem to really respect him for that. Where you see other guys like Greg Popovich or George Karl just ranting and raving on the sidelines and showing you that masculine energy. Brad Stevens doesn't do that. He's very calm, cool, and collected all the time on the sideline, and I think that it really helps those guys kind of look past the frustrations of the game. Case in point with this game 4 that we just watched, they all seem to come together despite the weird fouls and all of the brutality that they had to face against the Cavs in that game 4. And I think it speaks directly to Brad Stevens as a coach. But yeah, that's all the time we got for Explain Yourself. We just ran out of time. Next time we do this, we're gonna have to get into some of this NBA talk. But up next, after the break, we have some playoff projections. We're gonna talk about who Golden State, Cleveland, Washington, and Houston may or may not be facing, and see which one's going to be more of a challenge for them. So stay tuned.
Thanks for listening to Green Talk, presented by GreenlandSteeped.com. Remember to check us out on Instagram @CelticsNation5, on Twitter @CelticsNation5, and of course the website GreenlandSteeped.com. And now, back to the show.
And welcome back once again, Celtics fans and NBA fans. I can't stress that enough. We're going to get into some playoff projections. I'm really interested to see who's going to come out of the Memphis-Portland series, even though we all pretty much know it's going to be Memphis. But Mike Conley going down has been going to be a big issue for them. So who do you think, Brandon, is going to go up against Golden State? And who do you think out of those two teams between Portland and Memphis would give Golden State more of a headache?
As you said, it's looking like Memphis is going to take this one. I'm concerned about Mike Conley injury. I mean, he hasn't looked great, and there was talk of it's some kind of a head or eye injury. I'm not
Yeah, he
exactly
got a
sure.
facial fracture. I'm pretty sure.
But
I heard that this morning.
they're keeping that on the lowdown because there's not a lot of information out about that. And if he's having to wear a mask or if he has a facial fracture, I can't help but think that's going to affect his play. So I think they're going to advance. I think the Trailblazers are even more injury depleted.
Yeah, true. With that Wesley Matthews injury, I completely agree.
Yeah. I gotta say Golden State is gonna take that series. Given that Mike Conley is not healthy, and I think it's pretty apparent that he's not. If he magically comes back, this is a good series, and I wouldn't write off Memphis. They're a great playoff team.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that defense is ridiculous, and I think that just the whole atmosphere of the grindhouse and just the idea that those guys are real hard down low and play you so tight on the defensive end is just one of those things that really is conducive to a playoff atmosphere. So I really like that. Graham, speaking about this series, Wednesday night is Game 5. Memphis is up 3-1, 3-1. What do you think Portland has to do to pull themselves out of this hole?
They got to find a way. They just have to find a way to contain. I think Gasol and Zebo down low. They're just dominating the paint, and you got to find a way to get those guys. Connolly's hurt, obviously, so that's going to affect them. But ultimately, if they can find a way to win Game 5 and make it a 3-2 series kind of thing, then the series could go to Game 7, and the Trailblazers could pull an upset. I still think the Grizzlies are going to find a way to advance. And when they face the Warriors, even though the Grizzlies are a great playoff team, I kind of think they're that playoff team that are going to get that close, but not quite all the way. And the reason I'm going to say that is because of Seth Curry has just been playing so hot right now. Pardon the bad pun, but that's why I think the Warriors are just going to beat whoever they play in the second round, whether it's the Blazers, whether it's the Grizzlies. I think the Warriors are going to advance to the conference finals.
Trent, let me ask you this question.
Go ahead.
How do you think a Zach Randolph and Marcus Gasol, how do you think they're going to match up against the Warriors? And do you think there's an answer there?
I do think there's an answer. I think they match up fairly well against the Warriors because Marcus Gasol and Zach Randolph both have two-way game. And I don't think that there's another front court in all of basketball that can compete with the size and depth that Golden State has with Bogut, Draymond Green, and if they decide to bring David Lee out there. But Maurice Spates has been putting in great minutes for Golden State, scoring some baskets, really adding another dimension to the 5 position for Golden State. So I think it's going to be tough, but I don't think that Memphis is outmatched as everybody else in the league is. I think that they have just as good a chance as any other team to make it out of the West. And we talked earlier about windows and those closing, especially for like the Clippers. And I think Memphis, their window's closing pretty fast right now. They got some much needed bench help with Jeff Green, acquiring him and during the season. So they have some guys that can score, but it all comes down to defense and how well you can stop that backcourt of
I'm with you on that. I think the Grizzlies window's closing too.
Yeah, it definitely. And I don't think that there's a whole lot anybody can do with that backcourt of Golden State. It's too good. Jordan, what do you think about the series, man? What do you think about if Memphis goes on? What do you think they're going to have to do in order to beat Golden State?
I think Jordan's taking a little bit of a break here, so I'll go ahead.
I'm good.
Oh, you're good? All right, go ahead.
Oh, he's good. He's back.
He's back.
Well, first of all, they're going to have to contain Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. They can't let them both or contain. They're not going to stop them, but they have to contain them. They're not going to be able to do anything against them. I don't think if they can't stop the Splash Bros. Number one.
Yeah.
Zebo and Gasol, they both have to play really good as well. And you spoke on that Mike Conley thing. on how his injury may affect the Grizzlies. But I believe I heard that he may be back for their series. Maybe back after he has his surgery on Monday, I believe, and
Yeah.
so he'll be back. I'm pretty sure he'll be nice and healthy. I think Memphis can take them to maybe Game 6, but all in all, the Warriors will win it.
I couldn't agree more with that. We're gonna move into the next series. Cleveland advanced. We all know that. Sad for us Celtics fans. I know it hurts, but they have the opportunity to face either Chicago or Milwaukee. Personally, I think that Chicago is going to be a nightmare for them, especially now that they don't have Kevin Love. But Milwaukee's won what 2 straight now,
Yeah.
and the Bulls are not looking very good. What do you think, Brandon? Milwaukee's going to have to do to make sure that they can even out and then eventually clinch this series with Chicago.
You know, if I'm Chicago, I'm not too worried about that Milwaukee, that first matchup. Obviously, Joakim Noah has not looked good, and I think he's going through an injury, as well as that rookie Mirotic. I'm not sure exactly how to say his name. I think he's suffering through a little bit of an injury. No team's ever come back from a 3-0 deficit. I don't think Milwaukee's going to change that trend. So I'm looking forward to a Bulls-Cleveland series. One stat I'd like to throw at you guys. I heard this earlier. LeBron James has won a road game in his last 19 series, which the fact that he's played in 19 series is phenomenal alone. But he's won a away game in one of those series every single time he's gone out there, and that's definitely. I mean, there's something to be said there. There's concerns about the Bulls being a little too big in the front court, but those guys are down. They're a little hurt, and I'm not sure they're going to have the impact that we're speculating they might have.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from. I think LeBron, regardless of who wins this particular series between Chicago and Milwaukee, I think that LeBron and the Cavs, without Kevin Love, run over everybody.
Well, and they still got Kyrie, and I'm not sure there's a better two player. I'm not sure the Bulls have anyone better than even Kyrie on that team, even Derrick Rose.
Yeah, I think Derrick Rose's talent is way overstated. Yeah, he's got an MVP to his name, but he hasn't really been playing solid and consistent for the entire season, which has been really difficult for Chicago, despite all the other problems that they've had. I mean, I know Jimmy Butler's missed some time. Powell is, he's healthy, but I don't think he's really healthy. Joakim Noah always has problems because he's a 7-footer with foot issues. We all know how 7-footers with foot issues tend to decline.
Right.
When that kind of thing happens. That's why I'm really worried about Durant right now. But there's a lot going on with the whole Kevin Love aspect of everything. Everybody's going nuts about it, and I don't think that it's going to be as big of a problem as everybody says it is. I think they have enough guys to play enough quality minutes to make it a competitive series.
I completely agree. It's just you got your two best players, and Kevin Love was a role player. He might be their best third player, but he was a role player. He wasn't a star player on that team, and they got Mike Miller and James Jones. Those guys are obviously gonna have to step onto the court for probably the third time in the season. But I agree with you. I don't see this as a huge buffer for them in terms of getting into the playoffs or into the finals.
Game 6 for Chicago and Milwaukee. Chicago's winning that one 3-2. Is on Thursday. They got Game 6. Washington advanced, surprised by me. I didn't even have them winning that series, but Toronto just completely lost their minds. They're going to go up against Washington. Is going to go up against either Atlanta or Brooklyn. Brooklyn's been able to tie the series going back home to the Barclays Center. So, Graham, what do you think is the key piece to that Brooklyn lineup that's going to help propel them past this one-seeded Atlanta team?
I think I don't even think it's a piece. I just think they need to believe. I think the Hawks were number one seed, and everybody expects them to go deep. But I think if the Wizards end up playing the Nets, it'll be a very more tight series. Like it'll go game 6 or 7. I think if they have to play the Hawks, the Wizards beat the Raptors in 4. But I don't think they had unfortunately an easy first round. They got the sweep, but it didn't really prepare them for who they're going to be playing in the second round. And if it's the Hawks, I just think the Hawks are just going to dominate them. And just to go back with the Bulls series, if they advance and they play the Cavs, I think they really got to take advantage of those first 2 games with J.R. Smith being out and Kevin Love being out. If they can find a way to go win one of those 2 games, the Bulls are 7.
All right. Well, hey, real quick, I want to get to the last series before we run out of time. But San Antonio is beating the Clippers right now, 3-2, and Thursday night is game 6 for them as well. Jordan, what do you think is going to be the hardest matchup for Houston out of those 2 teams, San Antonio and Los Angeles?
I'm gonna say San Antonio just because of their experience with the playoffs, and y'all can hear me, right?
Little louder.
Yeah, I think San Antonio will be a tougher challenge than the Clippers. The Clippers, I don't think they're a good playoff team or playoff ready to move on after this round. I think the Spurs will be able to, move on past this round and then go on to the next round and also win that and move on to the, finals.
All right. And Brandon, you got anything to kind of co-sign off of that before we end the segment?
I Spurs too old. No way they make it to the finals. They're losing this game. Go Clippers.
We've been saying that the Spurs are too old for the last 5-6 seasons, and they keep winning championships. So I'm gonna hold all reservations until they're out of the playoffs. Coming up, we have some final thoughts. We're gonna get a little bit deeper into the Kelly Olynyk love altercation. I'm real hot about that. I know a lot of these other Celtics fans are hot about that, so we're gonna talk about that coming up next. So stay tuned.
Thanks for listening to Green Talk, presented by GreenRunSteeped.com. Remember to check us out on Instagram at CelticsNation5, on Twitter at CelticsNation5, and of course the website GreenRunSteeped.com. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back, Celtics fans. It's time for final thoughts. We're going to get these guys' thoughts on what they think about the Kevin Love and Kelly Olynyk situation. If you haven't heard, Kevin Love tore his left shoulder in the first quarter of Game 4 after getting tangled up with Kelly Olynyk, which caused Kelly Olynyk to get suspended for 1 game for the beginning of next season. Trent, let's go ahead and start with you. What do you think about all this?
I'm really upset that Kelly Olynyk got suspended for this. Everybody's talking about, well, look at the replay. It looks like he did it on purpose. I was like, all right, to me, you can't, and unless you know what you're doing, like you're an expert in martial arts, you can't just separate some guy's shoulder in 2.5 seconds in a little bit of a tangle like they had. I don't see how they can sit here and say, anybody can sit here and say that Kelly Olynyk meant to separate his shoulder and thus give him a 1-game suspension for that. I think it's completely ridiculous. I think it was a basketball play. I think with the way that these 2 teams have been battling that entire time, that it's been getting a little chippy, a little bit physical, and something like this was bound to happen. But I don't think that it was anything that Kelly initially thought, hey, I'm just going to rip his shoulder out of socket.
Yeah, I don't see Kelly as that type of guy. Brandon, what are you thinking about it?
The only thing I can agree with Trent about is that it wasn't premeditated, but looking at the medical report, it was his left shoulder, as you said, Jordan. The ball was going to the right, which is interesting because it pretty much proves that there was some significant force from Kelly Olynyk that pulled his shoulder back towards the left, and and caused him to separate his shoulder. You know, I don't think this is a basketball. Granted, this happens all the time, and also granted that Kelly Olynyk's he's traditionally not a dirty player. I've never seen a dirty play from him. But you know, what I think is, you know, Kevin Love, he's a great rebounder. If you don't remember, they took a timeout early in that game to Brad Stevens wanted to talk about defensive rebounding. I think that was a big emphasis for them going into this game. And I think he was getting frustrated. I think Kelly Olynyk, after a 4-game series, got frustrated with Kevin Love and how he rebounds. And you know, I think the medical report shows it. It gives us proof. I mean, I think he just did it little frustrated. Granted, he probably didn't mean to you know, do that to his shoulder, but you know, definitely acted out of frustration. And I think the 1-game suspension is warranted. For sure.
Interesting. Graham, what are your final thoughts about this?
Yeah, here's my thoughts on it. Is you know, Kelly Olynyk, like you said, he's not a dirty player. He's Canadian. Canadian are nice people. You wouldn't expect a Canadian player to rip somebody's shoulder out like that. But now he has you know, knocked out Kelly Olynyk KO. He's now knocked out Kevin Love for the rest of the series, this upcoming series. So Cleveland could use that if they have a rough series. They could use that as like a ploy kind of thing. But I think you know, Kelly Olynyk's a young player. Again, probably frustration. I don't think he did it on purpose at all. And if the Cavs are going to use that as a reason why they might not advance, you're in the playoffs. You got to find a way to win. Dig down deep. Star players get hurt. Then championship teams find a way to win. So yeah, I don't think he did it purposely. When you look at it, Kevin Love's going to be out a whole series, so that could be 4 or 5 games. They could have turned around and gone to Olynyk and said, we're going to give you a suspension for how many games that Kevin Love is out. So I think only having a 1-game suspension, he's lucky, and especially since this is going to be the first game of the season. You know, tons of teams start a season off 0-1. If Kelly Olynyk doesn't play and then they lose, you can start a season 0-1 and still come back and make the playoffs. So I think 1 game is justified and lucky as far as I'm concerned.
You know,
I could not disagree with that more. Look, Kelly Olynyk, I heard this morning. Kelly Olynyk has not had a technical foul in the NBA. He hasn't had one since he was a freshman, sophomore in college. I mean, I would understand if he's a repeat offender. I would understand if he's one of these guys like a Christian Laettner stomping on somebody's, you know, chest. You know, I understand giving them a suspension for that, but it was an innocent play. I think it got physical, as most playoff games do, and because it was who it was, I think that it made it so much more hyped up than what it really was. If this had happened to Kendrick Perkins, nobody's crying, nobody's upset, nobody's getting suspended for a game. Like, nobody cares. But because it was Kevin Love, we got to suspend him. And
to flip that side, if it was LeBron James, Olynyk could have got a 5-game suspension. So you got to look at both sides, I think.
My only question is, you know, Brad appeared to take Kelly out of the game. Why did they go after Jay Crowder? Any thoughts on that?
You know, maybe he was just wrong place, wrong time kind of guy. Jay's got a big motor, and he's a pest, and that's why Boston fans love him. And he's one of those guys. He's everywhere. He tries to do everything. He's one of those you know, big impact kind of guys. You don't necessarily see it on the stat page, but when he's in the game, you feel it. And he was doing what he does best. He was cutting through screens. He was trying to make plays on the ball. And I think just him being at the wrong place at the wrong time with that Kendrick Perkins pick and that J.R. Smith elbow. I mean, he was right under the rim where you normally see him when it's rebound time. So he was just doing what he normally does, and I think J.R. just took the opportunity.
Well, that would be two very unfortunate coincidences for sure. I'm not sure I'm not going to buy that theory. I don't believe in coincidences.
What do you think?
You know, I think one of two things. I think either, you know, he's talking on the court, talking for the series. I mean, obviously he got a little physical, and this was a better series than most people thought. So I either think that he was doing a little bit of extra talking. I also the other part of me thinks that he was doing a pretty damn good job on LeBron, and I think they felt that the Celtics hit him where they hurt in getting Kevin Love, and I think they wanted to get the Celtics back where they thought they might hurt. That's just my my thought on it.
All right, well, sounds good. We want to thank you guys for tuning in to our podcast, Green Talk, and we hope.
Thank you.
We hope.
Thanks everyone.
Yeah. Oh yeah, thanks to Graham, by the way, for tuning in with us. We know you're 5 hours ahead.
Yeah, UK man. Thank you for coming
it's all
on.
good. It's almost midnight here, so that's cool.
All right.
All right, well, thanks everybody. We'll see you guys next time, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for listening to Green Talk, presented by GreenRunSteep.com. Remember to check us out on Instagram at CelticsNation5, on Twitter at CelticsNation5, and of course the website GreenRunSteep.com. Until next time, that's all for Green Talk. Stay tuned for the next announced podcast.